Boris Johnson says trust the police. After Sarah Everard's murder by a serving Met officer, questions are being asked about police culture. The Prime Minister admits there are problems, but is backing forces.
What I would really urge the public, or I want to make it clear, I do believe in the police. I do think that we can trust the police, and I think the police do a wonderful, wonderful job.
Also tonight, Labour calls on the government to take emergency action to end the continuing petrol crisis.
And here's Glenn Kamara on the ball forward to Kimaru.
Condemned the school children who booed Rangers player Glenn Kamara during a match in Prague. And many legs make light work. Thousands of runners get ready for the London Marathon, hoping to raise millions for charity.
This is the ITV Evening News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. The Prime Minister has tonight urged the public to trust the police in the wake of the Sarah Everard murder trial. But Boris Johnson acknowledged that there are serious problems with the way violence against women and girls is tackled. And he promised to fix the system that sees a shockingly low number of successful prosecutions for rape. Well, it follows the whole life sentence given to PC Wayne Couzens for falsely arresting Sarah before raping and then murdering her. Today, one senior officer said women should be more suspicious if stopped by police, but many say it's the culture of policing that needs to change. As our political correspondent Libby Vina reports.
Officers patrolling in central London tonight in an attempt to restore people's faith in the force after one of their own murdered Sarah Everard. Earlier, the Prime Minister said people should trust them, while acknowledging problems existed in the criminal justice system.
I do believe in the police. I do think that we can trust the police, and I think the police do a wonderful, wonderful job. But there is a problem, and there is a problem in the way we handle rape, domestic violence, sexual violence, and the way we handle the complaints.
Figures just released show that 771 Met Police employees have faced sexual misconduct allegations since 2010. Over the same period, 163 Met officers were arrested for sexual offences, but only 38 of them were convicted following investigation. Wayne Couzens, who was sentenced yesterday, kidnapped Sarah Everard, pretending he was arresting her before he raped and killed her. Tonight, a senior officer from the Met suggested women needed to be more suspicious if stopped by police.
If somebody doesn't feel safe and they're not comfortable in the environment and they're dealing with a police officer, then ask them some questions. Where are you from? Why have you stopped me? Where are your colleagues? And that way they can start to feel safe. And if they really don't feel safe, they can dial 999.
On Clapham Common today, near to where Sarah Everard disappeared, there was disbelief that women were being asked to change their behaviour.
I find it frankly a bit ridiculous. You should investigate your police officers properly. It shouldn't be our responsibility to vet your own staff. That's just obscene.
How concerned would you be if you were stopped by a police officer now in the wake of what's happened?
Now it's happened, I would be terrified and I would be thinking, right, I'm getting away from here.
The Labour leader was also critical.
Millions of women will be very, very worried about their safety as a result of this. We don't need communications that tell women how to change their behaviour. We need communications that tell us how the police are going to change what they're doing.
Ministers today defended the Met Police Commissioner, Cressida Dick, but she is still under intense pressure over how the warning signs about Wayne Couzens were missed. Well, confidence in Cressida Dick does seem to be ebbing away. She met with some London MPs today, several of whom called on her to quit. Meanwhile, Yvette Cooper, the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, says there should be an independent inquiry into how Wayne Couzens was recruited and how he stayed so long a police officer.
All right, Libby, thank you. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has called on the Prime Minister to take emergency action to prevent problems hitting the fuel industry spreading into other sectors. Tonight, oil giant BP said that the petrol supply issues appear to be stabilising, but many forecourts remain dry. Our correspondent Dan Rivers is at one petrol station that's been forced to close. Dan, calls for further measures then.
Yeah, the situation at this station typifies the shortages. They had a tanker delivery on Wednesday. That would normally last a week. It sold out within 24 hours. Despite promises that the situation is improving, today the Labour leader has called on the government for action.
What we now need today is a Prime Minister prepared to stand up, say there is a problem, this is what needs to be done, and I'm going to get on and do it. And visas are part of the answer. We need action. Call Parliament if that's necessary. If it isn't, there's some other way of doing it. Tell us what that is, but get on with it.
Well, the government's saying that their new visa scheme for foreign HGV drivers will now be extended so that it will be 3 months from the date of arrival, which means some foreign drivers will stay potentially beyond Christmas. But they're even admitting, ministers this morning, that shortages will last probably into next week. The Petrol Retailers Association, who I talked to earlier on today, are saying, look, actually the situation is getting better up in the north, in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, for example. Situation's actually not that bad. It is still fairly acute down in the southeast and in some of the big cities, but they're saying that's beginning to be alleviated. The problem, of course, is consumer confidence, and they're saying that that will only really return once stations like this have got fuel for the consumers, and that's going to take a few more days. It's no comfort, really, if you're driving home this evening and you're running on empty.
Yeah, not much. Dan, thank you. Well, it's not just petrol that's fuelling a rise in the cost of living. Gas and electricity prices will increase for millions from today. The energy price cap has gone up, meaning those on a standard tariff will have to pay around £139 extra a year. Well, tonight, the energy industry told ITV News many customers will need more help to get through the winter. Here's our consumer editor, Chris Choi.
From the moment they switched on the lights this morning, millions were paying higher bills. Just as the weather changes, customers like this face the biggest rise to energy costs since the price cap began in 2019.
We need heat. We're getting colder months now. For me, it's really, really bad timing. And with that financial increase, we're left at quite a large deficit to try and find when there are no options for us really out there to be able to fill that void.
Today's energy price cap changes mean an average £139 a year rise to £1,277 for those on standard variable tariffs. It's £153 for prepayment customers. More than 15 million households are affected.
Once you tell them you want to switch, they start the ball rolling straight away.
For years, through adverts like this, switching was touted as the way to save. But now good alternative deals have disappeared. Here at Citizens Advice, frontline workers say that, afraid to put on heating, some customers are buying hot water bottles and extra duvets.
For years, people on these standard variable tariffs have been told, switch away and get off them. What on earth is the advice to them now?
Well, you're better off staying with your supplier and thinking about other things you can do to maybe change the way you use energy in your home, make it energy efficiency improvements if you can.
Charities fear bad weather could greatly escalate the problem, and senior figures in this industry concede that many customers will need more help through the coming winter.
We have got 4 million households in fuel poverty. Clearly we have to look at that. We don't want a situation where people are worried about heating their home.
Because at the moment only about 2 million are getting help.
And there's a real question about how we target the support that's available, and there is support available, but we need to make sure that it goes to the right people.
We need more, and that needs to happen quickly, doesn't it?
I would say so, yeah.
This surge in wholesale prices is largely caused by a rise in demand as economies reopen from the pandemic. Already it's caused corporate chaos with 10 power firms collapsing. Now many millions of customers will feel the impact.
Yeah, and Chris, we're likely to see energy prices rocket even higher in the coming months, aren't we?
Absolutely, and I know just hearing you say that so many people are going to feel daunted. People like Anthony in that report, whose attitude is, where do they expect us to get the extra money? And this is the important point. We've had this price cap rise today. The whole thing will happen again in April. Now, if things continue as they are doing on those wholesale gas markets internationally, we'll be looking at another significant rise. In fact, some experts are saying it could be as high as £180. No wonder so many charities are worried about what a dismal winter millions are facing.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for a lot of people. Chris, thank you. Well, you can find more information on what this means for you on our website. Just go to itv.com/news. Rangers manager Steven Gerrard has called for tougher action to tackle racism after a black player was jeered by children during a Europa League game. Glenn Kamara was targeted inside Sparta Prague Stadium, which was supposed to be closed to fans because of previous racist abuse. But UEFA allowed around 10,000 school children to attend last night's game. From Glasgow, here's our Scotland correspondent, Peter Smith.
Glenn Kamara isn't the first black footballer to be targeted by fans in European football. But this latest incident is all the more shocking because those jeering him in Prague last night were just children.
And the local kids can celebrate.
The Sparta Prague stadium was supposed to be empty, punishment for their fans racially abusing a black player in a previous match. As compromise, 10,000 tickets were given to local school children who booed Kamara's every touch. Scottish champions Rangers have now written a complaint to UEFA.
Disappointed and frustrated because these things keep raising their head far too often, and unfortunately the punishments are not enough. I said last night there needs to be more done, and it's the only way it's going to get eradicated because the punishments are nowhere near severe enough.
Glenn Kamara became a figure of hate in Prague 6 months ago. He was racially abused by a player from Sparta's city rival Slavia and spoke exclusively to ITV News.
He came over and he said, you're a monkey and you're a monkey and you know you are.
Last night, 2 children held up a banner in support of Cadella, the player who racially abused Kamara. Now Kamara's lawyers calling on European football authorities to do more.
There is a problem with racism in Eastern Europe in football. We saw it with the English players, what they were subjected to in Hungary. We've seen it now for a second time with Glenn Kamara. I think it's unacceptable that UEFA once again is silent.
UEFA told us they are looking into the matter. Sparta Prague have publicly thanked their children for a wonderful and unique atmosphere, adding, "We love you." 6 months ago, Glenn Kamara told me enough is enough. But when hatred is being passed on to the next generation, the future is still bleak for all black players. Peter Smith, ITV News, Glasgow.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News. Running for those who saved their lives this weekend.
It's a day when everyone's happy, it seems, in London and running for fabulous reasons.
All that and more after the break. Welcome back. The parents of Natasha Edna Laperouse have told ITV News she would have been amazed at the impact her tragic death has had on the world. The teenager died 5 years ago after suffering an allergic reaction to a pret-a-manger sandwich. Today, a new law in her name came into force requiring food retailers to list all ingredients and allergens. Well, Natasha's parents told Paul Davies it could prevent others dying needlessly.
It really is Natasha, isn't it?
Yes.
It's how I think of her.
There isn't a day when Natasha's parents don't think about the daughter they lost. But today, at least, they can take pride in a new law, Natasha's Law, the result of their years of campaigning to protect others at risk through food allergies.
It's a really important day, not just for us as Natasha's parents, but also for 2 million people who suffer from severe food allergies in the UK. This is D-Day, Deliverance Day for those people, and you know, one can't actually play down how important that is.
Natasha's Law requires the clear labelling of all ingredients and allergens in food that is pre-packed for direct sale. Information that can prevent more tragedies in the allergic community.
That is life-saving because people with allergies really need to rely on knowing what is going to go into their mouths. Food is poison to them, and the smallest amount can put them in A&E, and even worse.
15-year-old Natasha had been on holiday with best friend Bethany Holloway when she went into cardiac arrest after eating unlabelled sesame seeds in a pret-a-manger sandwich.
Hi, Bethany.
Hi, how are you?
Today, Bethany, now a university student, was one of the first to call her friend's parents.
What do you think Natasha would be saying about it?
I think she'd be so happy, so excited that this is finally happening.
Inseparable from early school days, Bethany would later watch her closest friend die. Little wonder, she says, today's tightening of food labelling rules is long overdue.
If that had been in place when Natasha bought that sandwich, she wouldn't have died. So it is an incredible law that is now in place, which should have been in place a long time ago, really, but now it's just, we're grateful that it's finally happened.
5 years after her tragic, avoidable death, Natasha Ednan Laperouse continues to inspire family, friends and all those who've campaigned in her name. Natasha's Law is her legacy. Paul Davis, ITV News.
People have been reporting problems with Scotland's new vaccine passport smartphone app. NHS Scotland released it last night, just in time for the scheme to start today. The Scottish Government says too many users at once caused problems, but there will be no enforcement of the rules until later this month. Wetherspoons pubs have recorded their biggest loss ever in the year to the end of July. Sales were down almost £500 million. The chain says it's hopeful of a rebound as customers return following the lifting of COVID restrictions. There was better financial news for Bond. James Bond, the long-awaited blockbuster No Time to Die, earned an estimated £5 million on its opening day in the UK and Ireland yesterday. The film opens in the US next week. Wales is set to become the first part of the UK to make the teaching of Black, Asian and minority ethnic histories compulsory. The announcement was made to coincide with the start of Black History Month. It's increased calls for the other home nations to follow suit. Ben Chapman heard from some of those who say the move is long overdue.
He didn't get the job because of the colour of his skin. Okay.
It may be the first day of Black History Month, but a lesson on civil rights isn't unusual for these pupils.
They boycotted the Montgomery bus for 60 days.
With 38 different ethnicities in their school, they're taught about different cultures and experiences every day, an opportunity they think all children should have.
In some schools it's not as diverse as here and they won't be able to learn from anybody there, so they should learn it in their curriculum. It's quite interesting to learn about different religions actually, and all the things that they might believe that you don't believe or that you want to learn more about.
Their community, Butte Town in Cardiff, has long been one of the most diverse in Europe.
Whenever any two children of different races play together, humanity grows an inch or two.
Now Wales plans to be the first nation in the UK to make the teaching of Black and ethnic minority history a compulsory part of the curriculum, which the head teacher here says is long overdue.
Those stories, the stories of Tiger Bay and the development of the docks, is all Welsh history, and children, wherever they are in Wales, need to know that story because it is part of their history.
Her predecessor would surely have approved. Betty Campbell, whose statue was unveiled this week, was Wales' first black head teacher, and it's hoped the new curriculum will help break down racial barriers. And there are calls for it to be extended beyond Wales.
It's going to shame England and Scotland for not following, and I think really we should. I mean, England, look, we do have our fair share of problems in England right now when it comes to divisions and identities, and I think this can only help. This can bring us together.
The Department for Education says pupils in England have the opportunity to study significant figures from minority backgrounds.
So by 2030, what's going to happen in Wales?
Wales is committed to becoming an anti-racist country by the end of the decade. Part of that is teaching all its children to respect the differences in their pasts. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Cardiff.
The entire nation is being asked to mark the Queen's 70 years on the throne by planting a tree. And Her Majesty was joined by her son, the Prince of Wales, today to plant the first one. They installed a copper beech at Balmoral with the help of some local school children. The initiative is called the Queen's Green Canopy and aims to increase Britain's woodland to fight climate change and benefit future generations. And finally, of all the big sporting events making a welcome return, this weekend's London Marathon could be the most memorable yet. After an 18-month break, it's set to be a record breaker, with more than 45,000 runners on the course and 50,000 joining virtually. And as Neil Connery reports, some of the participants have extra special reasons to take part.
This isn't running, people will laugh.
Simon Gallo is gearing up for his 26th consecutive London Marathon. He's overcome COVID complications, which left him fearing he'd lose his right leg. He'll be joining 45,000 others back on the streets for the first time since 2019.
It's a day when everyone's happy, it seems, in London and running for fabulous reasons and great sorrow in some cases, but it's a way of acknowledging sacrifices people have made, losses people have had.
Preparations for Sunday's London Marathon are now underway. It's 2.5 years since the full spectacle of one of the sporting calendar's greatest events was last seen.
So exciting. I mean, the whole day is just a feel-good day, not just for the people taking part, for the people along the route, but for people watching on television as well. Everybody feels better, I think, when the London Marathon happens, and the fact that it is, I think, is so needed for everyone.
Harmander Singh is all set for his 37th consecutive London Marathon after overcoming COVID in January. It took him 4 months to get back running after the virus saw him lose 12 pounds in a week.
There were times when I thought, what's the point? But no, but my determination, which has got me through some tough marathons in the past, is no, I've got to try.
Everyone to the right. Oh! These runners inside this Colin the Caterpillar cake are aiming for a world record for the fastest marathon in a six-man outfit. There'll be no shortage of tired legs, smiles and cheers along the way. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Good luck to all the caterpillars and runners this Sunday. That is it for now. Raggy will be here with news at 10, but from me and all the evening news team, bye-bye.